excited to hear good compliments from the chairman, Mr. Opombio. We have been working with him since 2006, and I must say that he is one of our best collaborators. He has always responded to our requests, and he is always the first person to request for any new cassava variety that we develop or we get for the country. So we are grateful and we are thankful. And we hope that all of you assembled here, especially those going into cassava processing, will also, well, talk to us, show us where you are, and we'll be ready to partner with you so that you can achieve the success that you want. Several speakers have spoken about the wealth in cassava, but let me ask a few questions before we get into the actual discussions about the best production practices that we can have as far as cassava is concerned. Now, if you go into cassava production, the first question you should ask yourself is, what are you producing the cassava for? What are you producing the cassava for? Is it for fufu? Is it for akole? Is it for gari? Is it for starch? Is it for flour? This is very, very important, because if you don't know what you are producing the cassava for, you will end up not producing anything good for yourself, because the value or the quality of the cassava required for starch is different from the quality you need for fufu. So to start, you must ask yourself, what am I producing the cassava for? If you are able to answer that, then the next question that you need to ask yourself is, what output do I need? I want to produce cassava starch. Now, I remember the gentleman talked about Ghana not exporting enough cassava to starch outside. Most of the varieties that we have, the starch contents are very, very low. And so we end up not producing, well, large quantities of cassava flour for export. We quoted some values, and I'll share a few with you in a moment. In 2017, Ghana produced 17 million metric tons of cassava. And out of that, we used 9.5 million metric tons in Ghana, which means we used that quantity for fufu, for ampesi, for gari, for home consumption. We were able to produce only 3.5 million tons of cassava into flour and then starch. We were able to also use about 1.5 for livestock feed. We could not account for about 3 million. And so, I remember about 3 years ago when the Vice President invited us to his office, I told him that we are not in the position to produce cassava starch for export. And at that point, maybe somebody thought I was coming from another political party. But I showed the real facts, and they believed. We need to expand our production using the right varieties. Do we have enough resources to go into cassava production and processing? This is also one question that we should ask ourselves before we start the production. Do we have enough supporting services? Fortunately for us, we have TIAS partnering with Stanbic Bank to support as far as the finances are concerned, but we have the technical support. How many of our farmers seek support from our extension people from our researchers. These are people who have been trained to support the farmers, but we allow them to use the knowledge that they have acquired untapped. If you are sick, you don't expect a doctor to come to you. You must make yourself available for the doctor to treat you. So I see that all of us, in a way, we are very sick as far as cassava production is concerned, and we need to seek proper advice from our technical people. Are we ready for value addition? Are we ready?
Yes.
That is why we are here. If we are ready for value addition, then we need also to, well, respond to a few other things that we will discuss. Now, is the market available? Yes. That one I will say yes, because I got to know that as far back as 3 or 4 years ago. But till today, I don't think we have started, or we have even sent out anything as far as that market which is sitting out there concerned. Now, let us move on and look at the best practices that we can use to achieve all the questions that I have asked. Now, the first one is, what are we producing the cassava for? And what output do we need? Do we have enough resources? To answer that, we must look at how we can create our own nucleus farm. Because if somebody intends going into cassava starch production, like Chairman is into, if he requires a ton of cassava starch, he needs to get 4 tons of fresh cassava to produce that. And if you require 4 tons to produce 1 ton of cassava starch, how many acres or hectares of land do you need? These are the questions that you must answer before you can start your cassava production. And so, if you want to say export about 100,000 tons of cassava per annum, which means you need 4 times that. In terms of the fresh cassava roots, you need 400,000 tons of cassava. Where can you get all those materials from? Are you going around farmers collecting these fresh cassava roots? No. So to start, you must look at establishing your own nucleus farm. At least 1/3 of your output should come from your own farm. Because from experience that we've had, and I can cite the experience we had with Caltech when we started some 20 years ago. We were buying from farmers, we were using farmers, but then when prices went up, they diverted the products to the fufu market because the fufu market was paying better than the factory. And so, if you have your nucleus farm, then you can be sure of at least 1/3 of your output. And once you have that, then you can look at the second step, which is the outgrower schemes. They are very, very, very important. Because you're going to produce your cassava within a certain community, and you must involve them in your production. And so you can look at, say, about 2/3 or another 1/3 of your output from your outgrowers. And once you have your outgrowers, you need to also go into contracts with them. Because now, if I am a farmer and you want me to sell my cassava to you, there should be some legal or some kind of contracts that will sort of bind me to bring my cassava to you when I harvest. Otherwise, I will look at where the market is good and then sell to them when the prices are good. And normally for cassava, during the rainy season, from this time up to say September, the prices are very, very low. And so the farmers would want to sell to you. Now, go into the dry season That is where the prices of cassava is very high, and they will end up selling their cassava to the private or the fufu markets, because that is where the prices are very good. And so if you go into contracts with them, then you spell out your portion of your agreement. Say, I will support you to produce, and then I will pick from you, and then both of you should agree what kind of purchasing arrangements are you going into. Is it at the current price or at the time of harvest? So that you are all very flexible. So if you say, okay, we're going to buy at the current price, which means that if the current price of cassava for now is about 1,000 cedis a ton, then it means at the time of harvest you are going to pay the same amount. But then you can also agree that, okay, we will buy at the prevailing price at the time of harvest. And so both of you will be very, very comfortable. And then you must also be prepared to support him, because you need a certain kind of quality. So you must also provide varieties, the suitable varieties for the farmer. Then once you have done all these things, now the way forward is not about, cutlass and hoe. We must move away from cutlass and hoe farming, and by the grace of God farming, and then move into real cassava industrialization through mechanization. That is very, very, very important. There are several places in Ghana that we are struggling to put cassava there, which for me and for us in research, we believe that they are not ideal for cassava production. So these are the kind of things that you need to talk to research and extension for us to guide you into the best way, and then where to also produce the good quality cassava for processing. Now, moving forward, having gotten our in place, then the next question that we must ask is, do we have the support service? Do we have people to advise us as far as our agronomic practices are concerned? These are very, very important, because you cannot go into cassava production or any crop production without following some basic production practices. And one of them, which is very key, is your site where you're going to produce cassava. We think that as for cassava, like the typical Ghanaian will say, oh, it used to be, but now it is not so. If you plant cassava in your good soils, it will also give you a very good yield. If you plant it in a very bad soil, you are going to fail, and you will end up wasting your resources as far as your activities are concerned. So your site should be very, very, very good. And once you have your site well selected, you must also look at other things. Are you going into processing, or you are going in just for home consumption? If it is for processing, you know that cassava for starch, once you harvest, you must process within 24 hours. So your site of processing should not be far away from your fields. And ideally, we recommend that it should be within 50-meter radius, so that within 24 hours, if you harvest, say, about 50 tons, you should be able to transport them from the field to the factory site for processing. Otherwise, if you allow them to stay in the field overnight, it is going to, the color is going to change, and you will have to spend some more money into it. I believe you know what episode means. Yes, it is going to deteriorate. And once it starts deteriorating, you have failed. Some time ago, a certain processor told me that he was buying, he has his plant in central region, somewhere around 𝐂𝐝𝐻, and he was buying cassava from 𝐷𝐴𝐴𝐻. Now the question is, how do you get the material to your place? Is it for gari, or is it for starch? I said, it's for starch. I said, if I were you, I would rather have the primary processing done at the 𝐷𝐼𝐀𝐒𝐲, and then you carry